Hello and welcome to everybody on Cloud Fitness. So in today's video, we are going to dive a little deeper into the Delta Lake, and we are going to see how we can transform the batch as well as the streaming data in the Databricks. So in case you have not watched my previous videos, on the Databricks Delta table, what is time travel, vacuum, merge command and schema evolution, I do recommend watching all of these videos to get a better understanding of this one. So let's move on to today's video. Now in this particular video, the very first thing I am going to do is, so from command number 4, I have a DB, right, a Delta DB, and I am using Spark SQL here to create a database in case it does not exist. So I am giving the name as Delta DB. In case this Delta DB does not exist, what I'm trying to do, I'm just trying to create a database, right? And then I am asking Spark SQL to just use that database. So hold on, even if you don't understand what's going on, eventually you will understand. So if you go to this data tab, we have already seen it, right? So there are multiple databases that you can create and use. As of now, there are no tables in the Delta DB. I also have default database over here, but I don't want to use default. I'm going to use a Delta DB over here, the new database that I have created, right? So here I have just given a command to use that particular database. Now also here are few import statements and few custom defined functions which I will be talking about a little later. So let me just run it for now because these are just the functions. So I'm just running them right now. But yes, let me run even this command. After that, I'll come back to each of these functions to explain you what is exactly happening, right? But now here, when we come to using the data set, right, I have to use a data set to demo you how we can transform, how we can use the Delta tables, while working with the batch as well as for the streaming data. Now in this case, I do need a data set, right? Now in this case, so see, in my whole playlist, I am showing you multiple ways in which you can use demo data sets, right? You can go to the Databricks data set, get, multiple data sets from there as well. I have shown you that as well. You can download your own file and use that. So there are multiple ways. So every time in the video I try to bring something new, right, to show you what else can be done, right? So similarly, if you see, this is let me just copy it and open it, right, in a new tab. So if you see, this is nothing but it is again from the Databricks. It is again a data set, right? It is a loans data set. It is a Parquet file. Of course, you will not be able to see it, right? So this is the file which I am trying to get, right? And I am trying to create a directory in my DBFS, in my Databricks file system. I am trying to create a location Delta demo. And inside that, I want to create a loan_Parquet folder because this data set is a loans data set. So I am creating a loans Parquet folder, and inside that folder I am adding this file as loans.parquet file, right? So let me just run it. Now the moment I run it, if you see, if I go to the data tab over here, if I go to DBFS, I have a temp folder. Let me go to the temp folder, and in that I have Delta demo, and in the Delta demo I have loans_Parquet. And here I have loans.parquet file. So this is the file that I have got, right? I've created this directory and I have got this particular file for our demo purpose, right? Now let's move ahead. So now we already know that a file is present at this particular location. Now we also know that in Spark you have spark.read API to read any kind of file. Now we have a Parquet file, so we can actually do spark.read.format Parquet and we can load the Parquet path, right? So this is we have discussed it multiple times. So this is the way how you can read a Parquet file. Now similarly, you can add 2 columns using with column, right? Now this is a transformation, right? This is a transformation, that kind of a transformation that you are trying to do. Here what you are trying to do on a data frame, you are trying to add 2 columns, type and timestamp. Timestamp will be the current timestamp, and this lit is essentially used to give any hard-coded value. So if you want to give any hard-coded custom value, you use literal. This is called literal. So inside that I am saying batch. Now this batch is a hard-coded value. Now why I have said this as a batch? So if you see, Parquet file is already there. I am going to read this Parquet file as a batch completely, right? So all the records which are being read through this data frame are actually the batch record. They are coming, in one shot, right? What is a batch? Batch is when you have a set of records and you are trying to read all the records at once, right? That is your batch. Now let me just try to run this. First of all, I'm trying to read it and then I'm trying to write it, right? If you see df.write.format delta, now regarding delta also we have made all the previous videos. You can go ahead and check that out. Now df.write.format delta, I'm writing the data frame as a delta format and I'm trying to save it as a table, and the name of this table is loans_delta. So just let me try to run it. So essentially what we have done, we have a file, we have taken a file. I have shown you a new way in which how you can take a file, and then you are reading the file, and while reading the file you are adding two new columns, and that data frame we are actually storing as a delta table. The name of the table is loans_delta. So if you see this, this is actually running and it has run. Now this loans_delta, if I go back to the data, right, now you can see my loans_delta has come up over here. Now we have already, in the very beginning I have said use delta db, right? I have already commanded my Spark SQL to use this particular database and then kind of use this particular delta db to create all my tables. Now that is why my loans delta is actually created here. Now let me go to the table now, the loans delta that has been created. So if you see, this is how the data will look like, right? All these things we have discussed in our previous videos already. So if you see, this is the data that it has: loans ID, funded amount, amount paid, address, state, type. Now these are the two columns that we have added, right? We have added this type column, which is nothing but batch, and if you see the timestamp, it is showing you the timestamp right now, correct? So this is how your data will look like in this particular table. Now we have a batch table. Now this is called a batch table, where you have loaded the data from a file into the table in a batch. So this is your batch table. Now if you see, I am going to show you now what we can do is from the Parquet file which we have. So we have a Parquet file at this location, right? We have a Parquet file at this location. So if I go back again to show you, in the data tab, dbfs location, temp, I have this Parquet file, right? Now using this Parquet file, what I can do, I can create another table, loans delta 2, using this particular Parquet file. I can create this, right? Now I am not defining any schema of this table. I'm not saying that use this schema or that schema. I'm just saying that use this particular Parquet file and create this table, right? I'm using simple SQL to do that. Now the moment I run that, let's see what happens. So if you see, now if I go back to this data tab, it will also have loans delta 2. Let me just open it. Now if you see this loans delta 2, right, now you can actually see the difference, right? Loan ID, funded amount, paid amount, straight address. Now using the Parquet file, we have created a table, right? Using the Parquet file, if you see here what I have done, using the Parquet file, I have created a delta table, right? Now this is how my Parquet file data looks like, but in the previous command, I have done, I have added two columns as well. One was type and one was timestamp. So this one is my original Parquet file, and this one is the batch data read that I have done, and I have also added a column which is kind of a transformation on which it is a transformation where I have added a column to explain you that okay, this is the batch read that has been done on the data. Now even if the Parquet file is present, right, you can actually convert the Parquet file which is present to the delta itself using convert to delta option, right? Now this is also something I wanted to show you, because we have discussed delta table in lot earlier. We have seen delta tables in detail, but here I just wanted to show you that even if you have a Parquet file present at a particular location, you can convert it to the delta format. So now just let me run that. Now the moment I run this, you will see that it will start converting my Parquet file into the delta format. And now let me go back to my Parquet file, right? Let me go back to the data tab, DBFS, I'll go to the temp, right? Delta demo, loans Parquet. Now you see my whole file actually got converted into the delta table. Now delta table, we have discussed what exactly it is, how it works. So if you see, now it has underscore delta underscore log. It has this checkpoint, it has the JSON file, right? Basically it has the transactional detail of my file. Now it has converted it into the delta table. So this is also one way where you can convert your Parquet files directly into the delta table. Right now, if I want to see the data which is already present in my delta lake, right? If it, for example, we have already created two tables, right? Loans delta and loans delta 2 we have created, right? So if I want to do a direct count star, I can do a direct count star on my delta table. So you can see this is the count, 14,705. Now similarly, if you see, right, if I want to view the data, if I just want to view the data, right, I can simply say dot show, or I can also do a display, right? Display is a better option to do always. So you can simply view how the data also looks like in those 14,705 records. Now comes the other part of it. So till now we have discussed the basics and how things are working. But now essentially, if you see, what I'm trying to do is I am trying to create a streaming data here. Now in the beginning, I have actually run few functions. Which will generate streaming data. I will walk you through those functions, but those functions are essentially to create streaming data. And those streaming data will actually be read by me in the delta lake. Now if you see, generate and append data stream. Now this is a function which is being called, and these are the parameters which are actually being provided to that particular function. So the first parameter is delta, the second parameter is basically the table name, the third is the schema, and the fourth is type, right? So basically, let me go to this particular function, right? This is the same function that I ran in the beginning. So let me go up and let us look at this function. So this is the function that we created. Right now in this function is actually used to generate the streaming data. Now if you see, these are the input parameters that this function takes. It takes the table format, which we have given as delta. It takes the table name, it takes the schema details, it takes the type. Right now what does this do? It is going and it is saying spark.readStream. Now spark.readStream is an API to read your streaming data. In case you have a stream and you want to read it, right? So just like in the batch, you use spark.read. Similar way, in the streaming data, you use readStream API. So here you are actually doing spark.readStream.format rate, right? Now this rate is an auto-generated value. Right now this rate is nothing but it is an auto generated value dot option rows per second 500 dot load. So here what you are trying to do, using an inbuilt rate method, what you are trying to do, you are trying to generate a streaming data out of it, right? One by one you are trying to generate 500 rows per second, and the moment you generate rows per second, on top of that you are using with column to add few details. You are saying add a loan ID, add a funded amount, add a paid amount, add a address state column, add a type column, right? And in the type column, just give me the hard-coded value which is being taken as the input. Now the input can be anything. You can type stream, you can type batch. Whatever parameter you will give while calling this function, the same input will be given over here, right? Now similarly, address state, it is randomly, now in this address state, what it is trying to do, it is saying random underscore state. It means it is actually calling this random state function. Now in this random state function, what it is doing, it is randomly picking up any of these values, CA, Texas, NY, WA. Out of these, this is a list. Now from this list, it is automatically picking up any of these 4 values and it is adding over here. Now paid amount. Now in this paid amount, if you see, it is trying to derive this column. Now these are all transformations which are being done. Now funded amount. Now this is the funded amount, right? Now whatever value does this column has, it is trying to, do a transformation on top of it. Now this is the transformation. Similarly, funded amount, again, it is trying to do a transformation on it. It is a numerical transformation. First just trying to multiply it by 500, then add 5000, adding 5000 on top of it, and then casting it as an integer. So similar kind of transformation you might also want to do in your use cases. Similarly, loan ID, it is just randomly generating a loan ID as well. So this is how, here exactly, if you understand what is happening, this is a function. The moment this function is called, it is randomly generating a value, rate 500 rows per second, and then it is adding columns. It is adding columns to it: loan ID, funded amount, paid amount, address state, and type. It is randomly adding these values and generating 500 rows per second. Right, so this is called your streaming data. It is adding the data in form of streams. It is continuously adding the data whenever this function is being called. So it is actually the streaming data, and whenever you have to read a stream, you actually say spark.read stream. Right, now is basically here it is also trying to say one thing, right? Schema OK equal to false. If schema OK is true, right? If you pass in true over here, if you say schema OK is true, then what it will do? Then again, it will actually go use this data frame, stream data. Now from this data frame, it is going to select these columns, right? It is going to select these columns which you have specified over here. It is going to select these columns, and after selecting, what it will do? Stream and df, basically this is a data frame, right, which is it has created dot write stream. Now similarly in batch you have spark dot read stream. Similarly in streaming data you have data frame dot read stream, data frame dot write stream. Right, now it is going and writing that streaming data, right, in whatever table format that you specify over here. So whatever table format that you specify, it is going to use that. If you specify delta format, it is going to write it as a delta format. Similarly, after that, this option we will talk about it later. Then you have trigger also will talk about, let us talk about these two things later. And then dot table, inside that they are giving table name. So this data, the moment this function is called, it is using your table format. Using this table format and this table name, it is creating a table with the table name you specify. It is trying to create same format table what you specify, right? And then it will load these records continuously. 500 rows per second it is actually going to load. Right? Now this is the function which is actually trying to do a data streaming. It is trying to stream the data. That is what it is trying to do. And then coming on to trigger, right? Trigger essentially it is used only in streaming data, right? You don't see it in batch data. So in the streaming data, the trigger essentially means is when you actually have to process the data, right? When you actually have to process the data, that is how you define the trigger. So if you say trigger once, right, there are multiple options that you can specify in this dot trigger. You can say trigger only once. Like for example, instead of this processing time, you can also say I want to trigger my function, I want to trigger the streaming data only one time. Right, so that kind of option on how you have to trigger your streaming data is actually specified by this dot trigger over here. Now here I am actually saying is that do it, my processing time will be 5 seconds over here. That is what I have specified. Now checkpoint location. Now in streaming there is something called as checkpointing. Checkpointing means that if you are reading the data and you are writing it somewhere, right? So how much data you have already read and how much data is left to read. Now that particular metrics has to be stored somewhere, right? So that metric storage is essentially your checkpoint location. That is called a checkpoint location, which internally will help your read stream and write stream to understand till what time it has already, or till what record it has already read the data and how much data is left to read, right? So that it do not reread the data. So that is what is called your checkpoint location. So basically you specify a checkpoint location over here. I am calling a function over here. Now if I go up, this is the function, and this function is nothing but it is simply, you know, giving a path, right? Instead of function you can also hard code the path. That is completely fine. So here it is just defining a checkpoint path. This is how my function looks like. Now let me go back over to the streaming place. Now if you see, generate and append data stream. So the same function I'm using, I'm saying that my format is delta, right? My table name should be loans delta. My scheme, so basically in the same table what I have created at the top. So if you see this loans delta, right, select count star from loans delta. In the same table it already has 14,705 records. So in the same table I am going to add this streaming data. I am saying, and in this table if you see I have this type column batch. So all these rows are actually coming from the batch. Previously we read everything as a batch, but now since we are reading everything as a stream, I am mentioning it as a stream. Stream A, stream B, right? Now if I run this, what is going to happen? My stream is going to start and it is going to start loading the data into this table. Now if you see in streaming, what happens is, this is how it looks like. Essentially it doesn't look like your typical batch reads, right? It will keep on streaming the data till the time you kind of stop it. That is how it works, and the stream looks like this. You have some green option over here, this green circle where you can actually see it's working, right? So essentially it starts loading the data. Now if you see, if you open this drop down, you will actually see it will show you input versus processing rate. Now how many records are coming in. So that kind of detail will actually appear here in the graphical format. Now I have added 2 times, I am calling this function 2 times. So I am generating 2 streams, stream A and stream B. So similarly for stream A you can actually see this is already running, and for the stream B the stream is running. So you have the graph for both of these. Right now also you have something called as raw data. Now in this raw data it will give you a little more detailed information on how your stream is processing, right? What is the ID, what is the run ID, typical internal to the Spark, but yes, you can always see the number of input records, right? Now if you see the number of input rows, what you see over here is number of input rows, and input rows per second was 500 and I have triggered it 5. Okay, let me go up and let me show you this again. So if you see, I have mentioned rows per second as 500, that each second you should give me 500 rows and processing time should be 5 seconds. So if you see, total number of rows will be 2500. Right? So this is how it works. Now let me come down over here again, and if you see this raw data, right? So the input number of rows is 2500 and input rows per second is 500, right? So it gives you a little more detailed information of what is happening. Now let me just let it run, let the stream run, and if you see, this loans delta table is actually running right now, correct? Now let me just try to here in this command number 26, what I'm trying to do, I am saying spark.readStream. So if you see I already explained that in normal batch you say spark.read, but in streaming you actually say spark.readStream, right? You use readstream API. Now using this readstream API, everything else is essentially the same. Spark.readstream.format delta, that read my delta table, right, and group by type. So here why I'm doing a group by type, because earlier if you see there was a batch record, right? There was only batch data that was present, but then when I did the streaming and I added the records into the same table, now in this table you should have stream A and stream B data as well. So if you see right now, it is automatically getting refreshed because it is still running. So input records are actually coming in, right? Input records are actually coming in, and I am still reading the data while the input records are coming in, and this count is actually changing of stream A and stream B. So right now let me just come a little down. Now you will see essentially this count of stream A and stream B in the output is still changing. Why it is changing? Because my stream is running and I am reading from the stream, and it is continuously writing to the table, and I am continuously reading from the table. So as it is writing and as it is reading, it is just changing and processing. So if you understood this, if you see how batch is actually being very different from your streaming. Now in case of batch, you can actually see the count is still same 14705, but your streaming data is changing because your streaming data is nothing but continuously something is getting added, right? That is your stream. You are adding the records, you are reading the record as soon as they come, right? As soon as they come, you are actually reading the records, and that is why, and this continuous coming of records is happening, and continuously you are reading, and you can see your stream A and stream B count is continuously going up, right? Now let me do one thing. Let me just stop the execution for now. Let me just click on the stop execution, because it will otherwise it will just simply continue reading. You actually need to stop the stream. Now here if you see, here I'm just trying to do some little bit analysis on this spark.readstream.format delta. Now we are reading this table, we are grouping it by type, and I am saying that for each 10 second just show me the count, right? Now the moment I run this, again it is basically a read stream only, but the top stream I have stopped. I've stopped the incoming to my stream right now. I'm just trying to read it. So this is how, even the way, what I want to show you over here is that this is how, even if you want to do any kind of transformation on top of your streaming data, this is how you do it. So here it is just trying to read this loans delta table, and then with each type it is trying to get me the window for every 10 seconds. So it is telling me for every 10 seconds how much data is coming in, right? So actually for each 10 seconds you can see 5,000 rows have come in, which is correct, right? Because my trigger was for 5 seconds, right? And you can actually see it has, for each 10 seconds it has 5,000 rows. Now also I stopped in between, so that might give you a little weird inputs for two streams, because I stopped it in the middle. Now let me just stop this as well. Okay, the moment you stop it, you will actually see it says cancelling. This is just a streaming thing. Now if you want to do any kind of analysis on your data, the similar thing, you can use your normal SQL queries, select address, state, count, anything that you want to do, you can do it normally on the table if you want to do. So this is exactly how you can process your streaming data. And also remember, for stopping the stream, you can actually the moment the stream is running, there is an option of stop stream. You have to do it, otherwise your streams are not going to stop. Now in my case, I have created a stop all streams function, which we have run at the top only. So this is a function. What it is actually doing is, it is going and it is checking if there are any active streams. If there are any active stream, it is just stopping it, and it is removing the checkpoint location. So these are the two things that this function is doing. Otherwise, you can also go and manually stop this as well. So this is how you can actually read your streaming data. You can do any kind of transformation as well on your streaming data. Now similar to the we have already talked about schema evolution and your all the your schema evolution, your merge logics, everything we have already discussed in the delta table. Again, if I'll just go through it here as well once. So describe history, right? Now this loans delta table. Now the moment I'm doing describe history, you can actually see for this loans delta table that we have created, right? Our stream was continuously updating it, right? Our stream was continuously updating it, right? And that is why you see for each and every time it was trying to update. Each and every time my stream was trying to update, it has created a entry into my history table. You can see it over here. So the very first thing that I did is I created the table. After that, I started streaming on that particular table. So all my streaming details, at what time, how many records were added, each details are actually captured in this history table. You have the version number, you have the timestamp, you can go back in time anytime you want. So this is the your delta table thing, right? Now similarly, let's say let me just do some imports. Like these are simple imports. You already know these PySpark packages that you need to import in case you are using it. Now similarly, in case you want to add additional data, then in that case you need to add additional column. Now in that case you need to define, right? You need to define the schema, redefine the schema, because here if you see new column, right, I want to add a new column of integer type, right? So I am defining here a struct field. I am defining, okay, this is the field that I want to add, this is integer type, right? So basically here what I'm trying to do is to add a new column. I am altering the schema of the table and then I am adding the data to it, right? So if you see right now, this is the new column which I want to add, and this is the schema of the new loans delta table. Now in that I am adding this data as well. Like I am adding this data 649702 is nothing but this is the new column of credit score that I have added. Now in this new column, right, I am creating a data frame from this data, right? I am creating a data frame from this data and I am showing you the schema. So this is how you can also alter the schema, right, by adding the new column. Right, if you want to alter the schema, you can actually do it. You can add a new column to it and then you can just simply add on the data to it. You have to define the schema and then just add the data to it, and this is how your new schema, your new data frame will look like. It will have two columns, right? And similarly, now if you see what I have done over here, I have a data frame, right? I have created a data frame where I have defined this is my data, right? Now this data, in this data what I have done, I have added a new column. I have added a new column in my data set, right? And this new column I have defined as a credit score integer type column. But now if I try to merge this column, right, if I try to merge this column, if I try to merge this data into my loans delta table, then you will have a issue. Now let me just run this command. Now if you see this command, new data dot write dot format delta mode append save as table. Now what it is trying to do, it is using this data frame that we have created, right? It is using the data frame with the new schema that we have created, and it is writing to the same table, loans delta table, which does not have this credit score, right? Loans delta table does not have this credit score, and we have just now created a data frame with additional column of credit score on the top of the data frame, and we are using this data to merge or to append to the loans delta table, and it is saying that a schema mismatch is detected, right? So this is called your schema enforcement, right? This is called your schema enforcement. Now basically if you already have a table and you are trying to add a changed schema data into that particular table, it is going to give you issues because the schema is enforced. Now if you want to get over that, in that case you have to use this option. You have to use this option, merge schema equal to true. This is called your schema evolution, which we have talked earlier as well. Now this merge schema is nothing but you are actually saying that okay, I am fine, just merge the data. So in the previous command, if you see, what is the difference here? New data.write.format delta.mode append, you are just saying that append it to this table, right? You are not saying that you are comfortable with the schema mismatch or not. Here you are actually saying that okay, I am comfortable with the schema mismatch, and just append the data. Now the moment you do it, the moment you say merge schema equal to true, it will actually go ahead and append the data. Now if I go and do a select star, right? Now if I do a select star, then you will actually see that you have this data as well in the loans delta table, right? Similarly, you have the time travel. Now this history part, right? Now history part, I have already explained you that all the history, everything, whatever you have done on your table gets added. Now if you see, I have been doing streaming updates, right, continuously after creation of the table, but just now I have done a write, right? Just now I have done a write, so that write is also reflected here. Each and everything related to this has added here. Now it has also told how many output rows were added, right? We added 2 rows, right? So that is how your history is actually maintained in the delta table. Now in case now if you understand, select star from loans delta version as of 0, the very first version, right, that I created, that had only my batch records, that had only 14,705 records, right? So let me just run this. Now my version 0 has only 14,705 records, but my latest version has much more records, right? So, and right now if I do select count star from the loans delta, it will have much more records because I was running the stream. Right now if you see, it has 288707, but the first version has 14,000 only. Now if I want to restore it back, right, I can simply say restore loans delta version as of 0. So it will go back and restore my table to the version 0 table. Now in this 0 version table, what is happening is it is going back and simply ignoring whatever changes I have done till now, right? And it is saying that okay, I'll restore it to the version 0. Now the moment I do it, you will actually see that it goes back to version 0. It will have 14,705 records only now. Now if you see, my loans delta is restored to version 0. So this is called your time traveling in the delta table. Similarly, you also have your merges. We have talked in detail regarding the merges as well, regarding the inserts. I do recommend watching all my previous videos related to this, so that it will be like really very clear to you on this delta tables. I tried to create a direct batch records, try to do some transformations on those batch records, and also I try to generate streaming records and show you how essentially the streaming works. So thank you so much for being till here. Do remember to like, share and subscribe to my channel, and also if you have any doubts, you can let me know in the comment section. I understand that this video had a lot of stuff in one video, so in case you are you did not understand or you could not comprehend in one go, I do recommend pausing and then trying to understand it, or watching it 2 times to understand it very clearly. So thank you so much for being till here. Do remember to like, share and subscribe.